I mean, we were still taking digital cameras out to the clubs. And so like, it's not like we really had like the access to information. And also I didn't have therapy. So like, I didn't know how to handle all the feelings that I felt.
Welcome to Misconnections. Each episode, we bring a true story of a misconnection and unpack it with the person who lived it.
This week's misconnection to the queen bee who made me feel safe to be seen with Rhee.
Rhee is a luxury wedding planner, designer, and founder of Refined Company. Beyond events, Jason is expanding his creative work into television and film, including developing an original romantic comedy inspired by the wedding industry. Welcome, Jason, to Misconnections.
Hi.
We're so happy you're here.
Yeah.
I'm happy to be here.
So you have a story for us, so why don't you go ahead and tell us?
We met at my first job out of college, waiting tables at the Cheesecake Factory. I was the newly out-of-the-closet ingenue, and you were the undeniable queen bee. You were standoffish as you trained me at first, but there was a mutual intrigue between us, and soon it was clear we were meant to be friends. Like everyone, I was drawn to your beauty. You looked like a Disney princess with a bob, and to my delight, you were drawn to me too. I had just entered a new phase where I was coming to terms with being an out gay man for the first time, building a new life for myself, and you were at its center, a safe space to be my full self. You and your boyfriend took me under your wing, and we quickly became like family. We spent countless nights together after closing, partied at coworkers' houses, and went out to fancy restaurants we could barely afford. We talked about our hopes and dreams, fantasizing about moving to LA to become actors. When those dreams became reality and you moved to LA, I was close behind, and we began hustling to build our careers, supporting each other at every step. I loved those early LA days when we were so enmeshed in each other's lives, going out together, having game nights. You and your boyfriend, now your husband, were my strongest support system. So much so that on my first date in LA at the Grove, you both showed up to spy on me and make sure it was going okay. In the early days of starting my career as a wedding planner, you gave me my biggest job yet, your own wedding. Planning such an extravagant event for such a beautiful bride did wonders for my career. But your marriage was also a turning point between us. Our paths started to diverge as you settled into your married life, and I set out on my own journey building my business, exploring my queerness, and navigating a serious drug addiction. Our relationship was changing because of our different paths, and I didn't know how to feel about it. Did I resent you for moving on with your life? Did I feel guilty for moving on, choosing a different path than mine? We used to fit together so seamlessly, but that alignment slowly dissipated until eventually, without saying anything, we didn't fit together at all. The strength of our original friendship gives me hope we'd be able to rekindle it one day. If we just met up and aired it all out, we'd realize the bedrock of the love and care we had for each other back then is still there. But maybe that's naive. We're not our 20-something selves anymore, and maybe our friendship faded for a reason. Who knows if we can get our friendship back, but I'll always love you just the same.
We will pick up eventually to where the story ended, but we're going to go back to the beginning and spend some time there too, because we want to explore kind of the layers that are existing within this story that spans a long period of time. And so let's start at the beginning and describe to us that early phase, that kind of like 20-something honeymoon phase of your friendship where you're working at a Cheesecake Factory, moving to LA. What did it feel like and what did it mean to you during that stage of your life?
I mean, we were so young and so excited, and everything was in the future. So we were looking forward to, these big dreams. And so, I mean, it was so much fun. I had a lot of fun. And at the same time, I was still really uncomfortable with being gay. And granted, like, it's the first thing that people would recognize about me because of my lisp and the way that I present myself. But it was still something that I was working through myself. So to be able to find people that had not known a straight or closeted version of me and only know this version of me, it was really freeing. And our friendship was fast and quick, and it was just so incredible to have that kind of support, especially in a job that is so vulnerable, because you're just like talking to strangers every day. And again, I was so young, and so I was like learning how to even just be a professional and make money. But it was exciting. I think that's the best way to say it. It was exciting, and there was like everything was an adventure and everything was new.
Mm-hmm. What were those like early LA days like? Did you come to LA for a reason, like for the industry?
Yeah. I think we had these dreams to be in the entertainment industry, to do things. And that's why obviously LA was so kind of visible, and she worked in fashion. And, I think at that time too, hospitality was different. Like nightlife looked different. So there was like clubbing back in the day, and just having like that kind of support. And it was always kind of this thing where it was her and her boyfriend and myself. So it was this great little trio, and we would kind of get into our own hijinks, and I would get into hijinks, and they would be the ones to kind of like pull me out of those hijinks.
Everyone had a role.
Yeah. And also just like exploring my queerness at that time too, and being able to like go into spaces like the gay bars and having like two really beautiful people come with me. And, her boyfriend, now husband, is this tall, very handsome Disney prince. And so it was just nice to have arm candy, but also have the firecracker that is my friend. Yeah.
Yeah, and they had your back.
They had my back and I had theirs, and we were loyal, and we were exploring things all the time, and exploring the cities.
What are the years we're talking about here? Because I do think, like you were saying, it was different even just in the scenes that were around.
I would say it was like, so I think it was like around the mid 2000s, like it was early 2000s for sure. And I guess when I started that job too, I was still really uncomfortable even saying that I was gay. So she was really a part of that entire experience of being comfortable and even learning how to say that I was gay.
Yeah. Did you ever see Elsie out at the clubs?
No, I didn't. But that was the exact era.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
That was the era.
The era of the hills.
It was the era of the hills.
Oh, I thought you were saying Elsie, and I was like, well, I'm lost.
Yeah.
Lauren Conrad.
Oh, no, Elsie. Yes.
Yeah.
No, totally locked in. Got it.
I think that was kind of that era too. It's like, the era of Bad Girls Club and like that kind of reality television. So I think like living in LA and being adjacent to that, it was kind of like, that was the fun of it, going out and like, seeing and being, being seen and things like that. But also having like $10 in my bank account.
Sure.
Yeah.
But it must have felt like a pretty full life. Like you said, you're experimenting, you're out and discovering things, but you had a core group of people. Like you said, you were loyal and you had each other's backs. So that must have just been so nice to kind of like have that security at the same time.
Absolutely. And, as a vain Leo, I think having pretty friends was also exciting for me too, because at the time, I was still unpacking all of my like being a nerd or being like the not popular kid in school. So being friends with the popular person at this restaurant was also a very exciting time. And then going to Vegas with them and like being able to go into clubs because I also had like 5 beautiful women with me all the time. And it was just a very like energetic and fun time, but I was also still so, young and insecure.
Sure. Yeah. So then your paths begin to diverge.
Yeah.
Both of you are moving into different directions. How did it feel in the moment when you started to notice that shift? And what were the factors you thought were at play then?
I think I had some guilt and resentment mixed together. I think a part of it was that at that time I was still understanding that like having female friends or straight female friends and being a gay guy who's like learning how to also just be gay, I felt like at some point our timeline does shift and change. If they end up having kids, as she was like kind of considering growing family, I was wanting to go to the club and like have fun with, other men and like experience that side of it while she was already married. And so I think at that point it wasn't really clear what was going on, but I definitely felt like there was a lot of distractions on my side. And I think I could feel that those distractions were in a way annoying to, my other friends that were not a part of those new communities.
You said there was a mix of like guilt and resentment. What was the other side of that, the flip of?
I think just like, what about me? Like, I still want to go out. Like, why don't you come and join me? Versus me having to go and do things that were fit for, what they wanted to do. And I think if I remember correctly too, again, I was like kind of secretly dealing with my own substance abuse. And so I think that part also makes it a little bit blurry where it's not, I think it just with a lot of feelings, and it was a lot of feelings that were unsaid because I also at the time was not comfortable sharing anything that wasn't, you know, if it wasn't positive or a joke, I didn't want to share it. So like I didn't want to talk about anything that was actually serious.
Yeah. I mean, what a space to be in, because like here are these people and this relationship to which they were like a solid rock for you, right? But at the same time, you were still navigating these like really big situations that, you know, created a lot of emotions, and you didn't necessarily feel safe to share that and be that vulnerable.
Yeah.
You know, because, well, you know, hindsight is 20/20. I don't know why, but like I can only imagine how difficult that was for you to be like at the same time seeing a distance or a divergence and not knowing how to say like, hey, I need some help. I need you to know me in this way, but I'm really scared to share that with you.
Yeah. And the truth is, I think my friends did as much as they could at the time. And I think it really also came down to, I just didn't know how to communicate my feelings at the time. I didn't know how to handle emotions in general. And I also had this like fun factor of being a small business and the struggle of that, where I was just constantly figuring out how to survive in LA with this like big dream that I had and having very little resources. You know, I wasn't sponsored. I wasn't like coming from a background where I had like unlimited funding from my parents. So it was a challenging time where I think we also had just personal stresses on top of the professional stresses, and then adding the fun little part of substance abuse. And I think even that portion of it, I really can't blame anyone other than myself. But I think the biggest thing was that I just didn't even know how to communicate my feelings, and I didn't know how to articulate what it was, what I was feeling, or how to fight for what I wanted. And I think avoidance was a big part of it too, where it's like, well, this seems a little bit more troubling and harder, so I maybe want to focus on things that are not so hard. And what feels better than hard conversations is going out and doing drugs.
Yeah. And add the context of being quite young.
Yeah.
You guys are navigating all of these dynamics you named just like separately, kind of pretty complicated situations, and they're all happening at once. And like you're saying, you didn't have the skills yet to communicate your feelings and to have those harder conversations, but like very few people do at that age, you know? And so I think that's one of the things we come up against in these long-term friendships that start when we're young, is that those paths start to diverge at times where we're often not equipped to manage what's happening interpersonally.
Absolutely.
Because you're kind of riding high on good times. You haven't yet had to build the skill of talking about the hard stuff because you're having such good times. It doesn't require it. And then all of a sudden you hit with this like mountain of stuff that needs to be dealt with. They're like, well, I'm not going to do that.
Yeah.
Why? How would I do that? Or even like maybe even oftentimes I don't think we notice it until later when you're like, oh, this thing has changed and it feels bad. But I guess I couldn't put my finger on when that happened.
Yeah. And I think like self-development wasn't vivid because it's not like social media existed yet at that point. I mean, we were still taking digital cameras out to the clubs. And so like, it's not like we really had like the access to information. And also I didn't have therapy. So like I didn't know how to handle all the feelings that I felt. But it is interesting because the one big perspective is I was so young. Yeah. And looking back on it now, I didn't feel that young though at the time. You know, I thought I was an adult, and I thought like, you know, we got this. And now I'm like, oh my God, I was a baby.
Yes.
We were babies. Yeah.
I also think about like the roles we play in relationships. They don't start overnight. They develop throughout your entire life. And so like the role of you being funny or like you having kind of like navigating this new space, like that didn't just happen day one when you met that friend, right, at Cheesecake Factory. And so part of learning how to be a friend is, you know, letting go of the role a little bit.
Yeah, that's a really great point, because I think I think I played the role of the funny fat friend growing up. I was like the funny fat kid. And I only had to be funny to survive being made fun of. So the first thing I could do is like, okay, well, if I can make you laugh about something, then you won't make fun of me. And so that was like the role that I got really comfortable doing. And I think a lot of it too was that we were going through different professional experiences, and I had some work traumas and things that were like, looking back on it now, were like not normal work experiences at companies. Funny enough, like I worked at the company that The Hills was based upon, like, and so not realizing that there was like resources at that time that like after I left that job, I should have gotten therapy because it was a very traumatic work experience. And I think like those are all the things that kind of like overshadowed and exposed, because that is essentially what made me have my substance abuse issues. It started with Adderall right after that like work experience trauma, and then it just kind of went out of hand from there.
Yeah. We want to tell you about an article on our Substack, The Gay Bestie, Pop Culture's Most Reliable Archetype Deserves a Break, written by CSR Calloway. We're excited to keep exploring connection through articles like this one. You can check it out at misconnectionspod.substack.com. There's a link in our show notes.
Before we get back into the episode, we want to give you a heads up that this last section includes a mention of losing a child. A really hard topic, especially for some, so we want to give you full permission to do whatever you have to do to take care of yourself. We want to zoom out a little bit more and talk about the roles that we like inherit and perceive in our relationships, and one in particular here. So even separate from this specific friendship you're talking about, although you talked about being the gay guy who has the 5 hot girls with him going into the club, which I think is, like we see the relationship between gay men and straight women portrayed in very like tropey ways in TV and film, especially in that time period of like the early aughts. And, we think like Stanley and Sex and the City and Christian and Clueless and George and My Best Friend's Wedding. And, obviously they're not a full picture of a person. And they're also not a full picture of the dynamics that you have in relationships. We saw those people as literally there to like prop up their straight counterpart. Kind of told the story that their experience didn't matter, that they were there to play a role. I'm curious, like, do you remember watching these characters on screen? Did you feel at a certain point like you either related to them or related to that dynamic of that like kind of gay bestie type trope?
Yeah, I think it was interesting. It was because I grew up watching like those rom-coms and I think for me, I'm more identified with it wasn't that I identified with gay characters at all, because also there wasn't really gay characters at the time that I really could see myself in, on top of the fact that they were usually white men.
Yeah.
And so there wasn't a lot of identification there. It was more so like identifying with like the supporting character in any rom-com. Like, and again, usually that person was like the funny, quirky looking person. And so that was kind of more the representation that I felt like I had. And again, to be very clear, like it's not like my friend ever made me feel like the accessory. A lot of times I felt like, the main character. And then I feel like there were times that she was the main character. And I loved that about our relationship. I think a big part of it was that I think at that time too, I always knew that there was almost this like non-permanent cycle of female friendships with gay men. And because I also was trying to figure out, do I want a group of gay male friends? And is that like the group that I want? Or do I want to be, now they talk about being a girl's gay or a gay is gay.
Yeah.
Like, I still don't really know where I fall with that, but I do love women. And I do love, and I feel safer with a group of women than I do with a group of gay men. But I'm kind of like unpacking all that now too, where it's like, where does that come from? Is that just because, again, I don't feel like safe because there's like sexual differences between me and men versus me and women. But yeah, I feel like those movies just kind of never really made me feel like I had a place anyway. So it's not like I really felt like I can identify with those characters from Sex and the City but I did love the feeling of being safe with a group of women, and also being able to take advantage of the fact that if you're going to a club and you are with a group of beautiful women, the ratio is perfect and you will get in.
Yeah.
So like
Right
being
to the front of the line.
Exactly. So being the one man in Vegas with like a group of beautiful women, and then us being ushered to the front, and then I would still have my internal anxiety of like, oh my God, like who's going to pay the bill? Like, do I have to pay the bill? Because
How do we fit these? How do gender roles play a factor here?
and gender roles, again, from my era, I grew up with those gender roles.
Yeah.
So a lot of times I did feel like I had to be the man in the group, even though I was a gay man. And so I think it was just a different experience where I don't really even know if I had like actual representation to really like learn from, as much as I just kind of like exposed therapied it and just like learn through failing.
I appreciate how obviously like we're asking questions that kind of box into certain narratives in order to be able to push back on them too.
Yeah.
And I think that is something that, as we've had conversations with you about this story and also just, the relational landscape and history of your life, that is something that you've been actively deconstructing and seeing. Because as you were mentioning, Beth, like we all occupy roles in our relationships. And we also encounter, especially over long-term relationships, ways that our journeys shift and change, and to kind of figure out how to stay connected through all of those, I do think takes understanding how like all the layers that are a part of it. And some of that is identity-based, and it is the way that we understand our identity as also the way that the world projects our identity onto us and what that means. So I just appreciate how, we don't buy into the stereotypes, but we do think it's important to name them in order to challenge them and look at them a little more nuanced.
Exactly.
In terms
And
of a
also,
personal experience.
And also accept the fact that the layers exist and that they will exist, and more layers will come. And when we think the character development of our life is over, oh, I'm sorry, no, there's more coming for you. And I think that's the beauty and the pain of life. And I think with relationships too, I think that's something that I appreciate more now than ever, is that I actually got to have experiences, both good and bad, because it's sculpted who I am today,
Yeah, I'm like at the point in my life where I feel like, okay, it's just starting.
I know, but it's also like I'm exhausted. And then I'm like,
there is
oh wait,
history.
I'm like, oh, there's another sequel coming. Oh, okay. So this is like a multi like sequenced episode that is my life. And then when I think things are great, of course, things just keep coming, and it's a reminder, I guess, that I'm alive.
Which is beautiful. We're so glad you are alive.
I know. Thank you.
Now, we'd love to like go back to the story, because we kind of left off with you wanting to have a chance to air out things and rebuild your friendship. Have you gotten that chance? And where do things stand in this relationship now?
We did. We got to do an incredible dinner with lots of laughter and tears. And I think it took a lot of time for both of us to not even forget everything that happened, but in a way like move forward in a very like maybe healthy and unhealthy ways, where we really just had to move on. We had to grow up. But it was incredible. And I feel so grateful that I got the opportunity to share a little bit about what I felt at the time and to hear her perspective. And it's something that I actively want to work on. I would love to continue to work on our relationship. And I do regret the time that we lost. And I think that's something that I will hope to never make that mistake again with anyone in my life, where I don't want that time to ever be lost again, where there was so much time lost on unknowing when it was just a conversation, and it could have been a fight or whatever it had to be to get to where we are. But I feel incredibly grateful that I feel like I have her back in my life. Yeah.
That's beautiful.
And I think it requires probably from both of you like a lot of empathy for your younger selves, both you for your younger self and for her younger self, and the opposite, because you said you wouldn't want to miss out on those years, but you did what you could with the tools that you had at the time. And so to be adults and reflect back and, like you said, just kind of accept and acknowledge that that isn't what you would have wanted, but that you, even just to your point a little bit ago about like we're constantly entering new chapters of our lives.
Yeah.
That like you now get to have a chapter where maybe there was a previous chapter that was missed, but that she gets to be back for the next chapter. And that
Absolutely.
just needs to be the truth at a certain point, as much as you would have wanted to change what happened in the past.
Yeah. I am grateful that that there are chapters that she missed in my life that I'm glad that she wasn't there and she wasn't a part of the struggles. And there's a lot of regret that I have in parts of her life that I missed, that I wish I could have been the support system and gotten to be a part of that part for her too. So it's like a bittersweet feeling, but it's all love.
Yeah.
And it's deep love.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which really speaks to the foundation of the relationship that you all have. You had times where you were divergent and on different paths and experiencing life. But at the core of the relation, there is a deep love and a deep acknowledgement of like wanting to say, I know, and I see you. And a privilege to see a relationship be able to transition in a way and say like, yes, things have happened, but I see you, I know you, I love you at the same time,
Yeah. And a deep gratitude for the opportunity she gave me when she even just entered in my life and became a friend of mine and like saw that insecure person that was like so vulnerable and scared to be who I was, waiting tables, and to have that like power and force that she is and she was at that time, tell you that you're enough to even be in her life. That was such a big, powerful moment too, where that I think added so much confidence to who I am. Yeah.
And I want to keep talking about this, but I do think it's probably a good time to hear what your friend has to say.
Oh, okay.
If that's okay.
Yeah.
So let me back up and say that we asked your friend if she would be open to participating by sending in a voice note about her experience as she reflects on your friendship. And there's so much of what we're talking about that I'm wanting to reference based on what she said. So I think let's listen to it and then get to keep talking about this.
Hey, it's Ashani. I'm just recording this audio file for you for the episode with Jason. So I'll answer your questions here. Jason and I first met when we were both waiting tables in our early 20s at the Cheesecake Factory. And I have to say, it was love at first sight. I think one day we both looked at each other and in unison said, "Want to be friends?" And that was that. We did everything together and it was so much fun. We both moved out of suburbia to West Hollywood together and we were living our best life. I have so many core memories with him that I will forever cherish. When I reflect back on our friendship, I look back on it with so much love. I only wish good things for him because I think he's an incredibly beautiful human being. Our lives ended up going in really different directions after I got married and had children. Jason officiated and planned my big Sri Lankan wedding, which looking back on it almost 20 years later, I imagine I was a bit of a nightmare. And he was truly amazing through it all. Afterwards, I think there were a couple misunderstandings and we stopped talking and I never really understood why. Through everything, even when we weren't talking, I would still always think about it and wish things were different. We reconnected during the pandemic and he shared some of his struggles that he had been going through, and I felt terrible for not being able to support him through that time. But it still felt kind of weird at that time when we reconnected, even though we were back in each other's lives. So now, currently, we're trying this friendship out again, and I feel hopeful about it. Jason has a vibrant and fun personality, which makes it very easy to be around him, but he's also a deep thinker and he cares about humanity. He and I put immense value on the same things, which is what I think the real foundation of friendship is. And whatever happens, I'll always love him. I don't know if you guys talked about this yet, but my 8-year-old son died not too long ago, and when you've lost a child, you become a semblance of your former self. Since my son died, I've been going through life with no real purpose or meaning, and the only thing that really matters to me right now are my relationships with people who are meaningful to me and willing to walk this path with me, because it's not easy being a friend to me right now. It's not easy standing by someone when they're in the worst kind of pain a human being can experience. So Jason and I reconnected after my son's passing, and he has surprised me, to be honest. I feel like I don't know who I am anymore, and Jason holds a piece of me from the past. So being around him feels comforting, especially when I've had so many friends that have chosen not to stay after my son died. So I don't know where things will go with our friendship, but I hope we can get back to growing a different kind of relationship, and I love him. I always will.
Sorry, we'll give you a second. I know we had laid that on you. And we'd love to know what you think, obviously, but I think really quickly, I just, as you were talking throughout our conversation, you mentioned at the beginning that it was hard to have hard conversations in your 20s when your friendship was changing. And what I think is just so incredibly beautiful about your relationship is that there is such clear love that you have for each other, and also that like you're holding space for the hard parts of constructing and reconstructing a relationship that clearly means so much to you. So I thought that was just so clearly evident in her note and the love that you have for each other. But how does it?
I mean, she's an incredible human. She's an incredible mother and an incredible friend. And I think, what she experiences is something that I just wish I could do more for her, especially in what I can't even imagine. And in a way, it just kind of washes anything that really happened in the past and whatever concerns or, insecurities I had about our relationship, because none of that matters. I just want to be whatever I can be for her whenever she's ready to receive it. But she's an incredible woman, and she's so beautiful. And she's two beautiful daughters, and obviously her son is so beautiful as well. And I have a lot of regret that I didn't get to experience him. And that's like regret too, that I think further, verifies that I have to never waste time like that again, and I didn't know what she was struggling with at the time. And I think that's kind of the deepest sadness of that like space and that time we took apart, is that like, she was going through so much, and what I shared with her about my substance abuse, she missed a lot of that as well. And it's not even comparable. Like, I don't think it's comparable to what a mother has to go through. And so, I just love her tremendously. And I'm so grateful that she got to share that with you guys. And I just, I hope I'm not an ugly crier.
No, you beautiful
beautiful crier.
I will say that, sure, it's not comparable, but grief is something that is not easy. And we experience grief in many different ways. And I'm sure you experience grief in the midst of your substance use and conquering that and moving on from that. And so I think the fact that you understand grief in your own way is why you can show up for her and know, however she communicates saying like, I'm not who I am, like she's been changed by the loss of her son. That doesn't scare you away because you've experienced your own grief. And I truly I've experienced grief multiple iterations in my life. And I think it's some of the most profound ways to discover how human we are and how being human is such a gift that I just hearing you two talk about each other, I just have this trust that you will find a space and a friendship that's it's the version that it can be, and it'll be respectful and loving as the, the core that you guys have already,
Yeah. And I think in these moments too, it teaches me a lot about the struggles of perfectionism and like feeling like we have to do it certain ways, and what is the best way to do it. And I'm realizing more and more that like there is not one clear answer, and that like I would much rather make a mistake trying than avoid something because I'm fearful of making the mistake. So yeah, that's how I feel like I've approached it. And I also see this like amazing part of her grief that I'm beginning to see how she's using what she needs to use to get to the next point in her life. And I'm incredibly moved and impressed. And I'm incredibly in awe of the strength that any parent has just being a parent. And to see how she parents and the way she loves is so incredible, but it also is not surprising because that is who she is.
Mm-hmm.
That is Ashani.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it's such a gift. I mean, she mentioned this in her note, and is to have people in your life who've known you in different versions of your life. Yeah. And the people in our community hold those pieces of us to be true at the same time as we grow and as we change. And so, an image that I keep reflecting on as we're talking is that like, we don't all get to have our friends that we were standing in line at clubs with, like have deep, meaningful conversations and be there in hard parts of our lives. Most of the people who are living in that time of fun, which I hope persists for everyone throughout their lives, but like, in whatever way, but like, they expire at a certain point because of whatever. It's not built on more. But, as she mentions, and as you've been mentioning, that you have really more of like a deep alignment around what you believe in and what you care about, and that is a real foundation that was actually built, even though you didn't have the words for it at the time. Mm-hmm. There was a real foundation that was built in those early close years, a familial type of connection that can sustain even when you don't have closeness. Yeah. And so to be able to reconnect with that, it makes sense that it feels like finding a little part of your younger self too. Yeah. In there.
Yeah. And I think a lot of that, what comes up for me is just the gratitude that I think she may not know is that she loved me at a time that I felt like I was so unlovable. And I didn't even see what was lovable about myself. I was still learning all of that. So I don't think she even knows the support that she gave me for me to even be here today. I think she was a tremendous part of my confidence and a tremendous part of me learning who I was at that time. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Beautiful. Yeah. Beautiful. Thank you for being here.
Yeah,
thank you for sharing this story. It's not easy to reflect on, especially stories that are actively in progress. Yeah. And it's such a gift that you were open to sharing your story, that Ashani joined us in that, and that you two are on such a beautiful journey. And we're just happy to be here on the sidelines cheering for you.
Thank you for the opportunity for us to share our story.
Of course. We love it.
Thank you, Jason, for joining us. To learn more about Jason's wedding and special events services, go to rheefind.com, RHEEFINED.com. Also, be sure to follow Jason on Instagram and TikTok @JasonRoars. You won't regret it.
This Misconnections essay was written by Charlotte Beach. Charlotte Beach is a writer, sign painter, and muralist based in Los Angeles. To follow her work, follow her on Instagram @ScarlettPeach.
And thank you to Jason's friend Ashani for being a part of this episode. Ashani, we so appreciate your openness and willingness to tell your story. Check out Ashani's podcast, The Sad Moms, a community for the grieving from the heart of a bereaved mother, wherever you get your podcasts. Links are in the show notes.
This is Misconnections. Thanks for listening. I'm Elizabeth Wyndham.
And I'm Elizabeth Villa. Special thanks to this week's guest, Jason Rhee.
Misconnections is hosted, produced, and edited by us, the Elizabeths. Elizabeth Villa with special thanks, and Elizabeth Wyndham with Windhaven Productions.
Our theme music is Feeling by Daniil Musto. Be sure to check out our Substack at misconnectionspod.substack.com.
And please follow, subscribe, rate, and review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or YouTube.